Hello and welcome to today's content, which will be on the Final Fantasy 4. It will be basically quick evaluations because they have been released again, and plus a quick Golbez one. I will be doing a more in-depth Golbez one after this video, in the future, definitely. But yeah, for now, this is going to be a quick evaluation to just see if people really want to pick up the FF4 cast, if they want to kind of like invest in the characters. Yeah, also I'll have to say, I'll also probably do a more proper video where like I'm kind of explaining what's going on my side of things and all that. But yeah, if I do happen to kind of like pause the video out of nowhere and you just hear nothing, that's probably me muting the mic to cough, so don't worry too much about it. It's just gonna be a small hiccup. But yeah, outside of that, without further ado, let's begin. So here we are at Golbez's evaluation. So the rating up to date, I will say at release, Golbez is probably a solid 4 out of 5. Just because of his overall gimmick as a unit, as well as him just being extremely tanky. Like he, as a DPS unit, being very like having good survivability is very important. So having that, Golbez is very good in what he does for that. Also the ratings for the second year changes, I have to include this because with the sub vision cards and like TMR like rune upgrades and all that, you can make a lot more builds, and scaling on units are actually going to start being more important. And what I mean by scaling is like your attack percentage, your HP, what do you have for defense and like spirit, what is your luck stat, all that is also gonna take a lot more like importance now onto units for the second year changes, because of how much you can start stacking up skills, stats, abilities, all that. So it's gonna be more important now, like more than ever, for the future. Obviously we still have a lot of months to go until the year 2 changes, but yeah, that is something to consider now. Before I talk about Golbez and other stuff, some good matchups Golbez has is gonna definitely be onto Engelbert, Thancred, and even Helena herself, and I'll explain why. So for Engelbert and Thancred, they have abysmal magic attack resistance, and Golbez actually has no magic attack resistance penetration, and it's very difficult for him to get it outside of the Cypress pile, which I believe still hasn't been re-released to get. So yeah, outside of that, he is very good onto units that do not have proper magic attack resistance. I will say, however, if units do have good spirit, however, then they will struggle a bit. The reason why Helena is specifically here, even though you're probably thinking like, oh, Helena has good magic attack resistance, right? It's like, yes, it's true, she does have good magic attack resistance. However, she also kind of struggles against Golbez, who not only has a very tanky spirit, but a good amount of magic attack resistance himself, as well as he actually has dark resistance on his limit break. So he is kind of made to kind of fight dark, ironically, because he is a dark unit. So just keep that in mind why I put that in the good matchups. I tried to keep it to 2 opposite elements for like the matchup wise, and then 1 like freebie element, or like just a unit that you see pretty often and or are just a matchup wise. So yeah, that's gonna be kind of like a format, I would say. Units to watch out for, same thing as the top side, 2 opposite elements if possible, and then 1 other element. So yeah, units to watch for, Elena is still gonna slap Golbez around. The reason why? Golbez does not have very good accuracy or 100% hit abilities without proper setup. This means Elena is not only going to be chaining Golbez, because Golbez is also slow, and she's going to lower his agility as well as be chaining him. She has slash resistance in peril, as well as like good relevant spirit penetration as well. So because, oh no, not slash in peril, sorry, slash resistance penetration, my bad, that is bad wording on me. But yeah, because she has access to 2 penetration for like that matchup against Golbez, Golbez will struggle against Elena. Also, while Golbez can like take away auto revive, specifically against Elena has guts. So that is something that he has to consider. He will have to take at minimum 2 hits to take out Elena by himself. Another unit to watch out for is going to be Camillo. I know people are probably thinking this is kind of like a meme, but seriously, once Camillo gets his custom lance for like the light selection job quest that comes out in the future, not only can his spirit not be reduced because it has spirit debuff resistance like 100%, I believe, he also gains an insane amount of spirit, and he already has a magic barrier as well and very high magic attack resistance. So Golbez will literally be walled out by a Camillo. Yes, this will happen in the future, it is just there. Another unit that is more, I would say, more magic attack resistance focused rather than having a lot of spirit is gonna be Frievia. Frievia has an insanely large amount of magic attack resistance as a unit just based off passives alone. I believe it was like 49% with just her passives. So yeah, outside of that, you could always put on espers, you could put on vision cards. She will easily tank Golbez out like with like very little effort. So just keep that in mind. Now let's talk about Golbez as a unit overall, just kind of quickly. Golbez does have very high survivability because he has decent resistances outside of strike, obviously, which is very strong against him specifically. Also, Camilla does have the pugilist sub-job, so yeah, just keep that in mind. He actually has very high defense and spirit due to his passives without giving up too much on his DPS. So yeah, he is very tanky, even if he still does relevant DPS, so he doesn't have to worry too much about that. He has really a lot of good passes to actually choose from, and you had each one kind of ends up as a different build, so you have to kind of properly prepare for each matchup. I'll say this as more of like, I'll say Golbez is better as an offensive unit rather than a defensive unit, unless you're kind of like trying to trick your opponent into something else, because he is capable of like very different builds to be used differently. Like he just has that type of setup. His main gimmick is going to be Imperiling Spirit and hitting extremely hard with magic attack type abilities. This is while he's boasting very high defense and dark resistance. He can also get very high spirit as well, however he will have to kind of like, as I said, use different passives to kind of set up for more spirit instead. Just as a base unit, he does have high defense, and he does get dark resistance off his limit break specifically. While Golbez is only has 62 agility, which is not, it's still slow, but it's not like super fast. Like super slow or anything, so it's not bad. His base is going to be at 56 though, which is not too bad because that means with an agility vision card, which obviously we know, Black Rose Helena, he will be like at least decently like competitively fast. His hardest hitting abilities outside of his limit break all have cast time. At least his master ability does reduce cast time, so it helps out there, but yeah, you have to keep that in mind because he has almost all cast time on his hardest hitting abilities. He does need cast time pretty much. Like there are not going to be many insta casts for Golbez outside of his limit break. His Missing Moon self buff is actually extremely effective against units that rely on debuffs and imperils for DPS, but is actually really ineffective against units with resistance penetration instead. And that's why I meant for Elena, who has slash resistance penetration as well as spirit penetration. They are going to be very effective against Golbez. If Golbez uses Missing Moon, however, like you cannot elemental Imperon, and you cannot like use Kotetsu or something on it. Like it will not lower the slash resistance for at least 3 turns. That's what Missing Moon does. So Missing Moon is really effective against units that kind of rely on imperils and debuffs. So yeah, this is a very good matchup into a lot of units, specifically even Helena. Like Helena can limit break Golbez, but the dark resistance doesn't even go down. So Helena's like, wait, I can't use limit break against him. It's not gonna be like hit him strong enough. I have to use something else. It's gonna be like type of like that. So yeah, his Missing Moon buff is gonna be very effective against those situations. Also, while Golbez, without a high luck total and base stat, he has to use the Scholar passive for additional accuracy for a fighting chance against evasion units due to not having an 100% hit ability. I will say his accuracy is decent if you use the Scholar passive he has for the extra like 20 accuracy on top of his luck. However, without it, he will struggle very hard against evasion units overall. And lastly, to say for Golbez, the scaling of stats of him are decent. Like they're all like okay, they're nothing like crazy, they're nothing bad. With the second year changes and the sub VCs being able to be put on to Golbez, he'll actually be insanely beefy because of his base like defense and spirit stats on his passives. But his accuracy, magic, and dex bases are gonna be nothing great to scale off of, unfortunately. So his damage is not gonna really change too much. His accuracy will like need a lot of help, like even in second year changes still, but yeah, his beefiness will not be changing, so that is something to like consider because he will be able to like survive for much longer than most units. So here we are at Kain's evaluation. His rating up to date is 4.5 out of 5 as of right now, and I will say he is a very strong unit right now, which is very nice to see because he's ironically on the Final Fantasy 4 release, like first release, Kain was still the winner and he is still now pretty much. Ratings for the second year changes, I do have to lower him a little bit to 4 out of 5. I might have even lowered him to 3.5 out of 5, but for now, I think his peak would be 4 out of 5 for the second year changes, and I'll explain why later in his text on the right side. So good matchups. Warrior Light, unfortunately, ironically also once again, on Kain's release, Warrior Light got deleted by Kain. Like seriously, it was not funny how fast Kain just dumpstered Warrior Light. This is no different. Even now with EX changes, even more so, Kain will delete Warrior Light from the game very quickly. And I say this as in, if people were using Warrior Light like pretty often, it's gonna be very hard to do that now against dark unit matchups in general because of Kain alone, because of that super high like pierce damage. Even if Warrior Light like stacks up a lot of pierce resistance, he is giving up a lot of something else that made it more viable in other situations. So yeah, Kain is gonna be very good into it. Also, because of Dragon Raid Plus, he can remove Guts as a unit, so Kain is going to be actually decently good into Engelbert. While Engelbert is definitely going to be a lot more tankier in pierce resistance compared to Warrior Light, because Kain can remove that healing power and as well as the Guts on Engelbert, Engelbert will have very like, he will struggle to survive in general, like even further than what he can because of Kain. And then lastly, basically the flex elemental rotation, it will be Charlotte. Charlotte is actually more often used as a quote-unquote magic tank-ish in a way. Also with her negative pierce resistance as a base amount, that does mean that Kain can deal significant damage to her very quickly. So yeah, that is something to watch out for. So units to watch out for, like Kain that needs to watch out, is gonna be Lucio. I will say once Lucio gets his level 120, gets his like EX weapon, I mean not his EX weapon, the Crystal Warrior weapon for himself, Lucio is insane. I'll say this right here in this video if you're watching, Lucio will literally stomp all dark resistance, like dark unit matchups almost entirely one-sided. And I can explain why in the future, but not right now. I will say he is capable of literally nullifying dark resistance. He can reach 100% dark resistance with a specific build that is out right now in JP if you have the right setup for him. Just keep that in mind. Another unit is once Sakura gets her EX. Sakura, ironically, I keep saying ironically now lately. Excuse me. Sakura was always actually good against Kain, because not only does she have a lot of defense like when she was first released, she also had dark resistance as well as pierce resistance, and she could remove Guts, the one key like player in Kain's survivability, which is Guts. So yeah, Sakura once she gets her EX will still once again be a menace against Kain specifically. And lastly, yes, Golbez is actually good against Kain. While Golbez does have a little bit of negative pierce resistance, however, Golbez not only has a barrier which Kain cannot break by himself, Golbez also has a lot of like sustain and tankiness, and has very strong magic attack type damage, which Kain is not exactly like gonna be mitigating a lot against. So Kain will have very like a good amount of difficulty like fighting Golbez, which is also kind of funny because that is kind of like how in the game itself for Final Fantasy IV, Golbez is kind of controlling and like easily like handles Kain. So it's kind of funny how that works. Now let's talk about Kain's like overall kit as a unit. So Kain actually has one of the highest raw DPSs as a Dragoon and Spear user in general. On top of this, he has Guts in his kit. Very important, like Immortal Spirit, very strong, which allows him to have an upper hand in most fights off that alone. He actually has more raw DPS than Oberon and Aranea, and like he has almost as high raw DPS as who is it? Winter Luartha, I believe. Yeah, like almost as high as Winter Luartha, who is almost like a glass cannon. So yeah, Kain is very capable of hitting very high damage because of that. With EX changes, Kain has a total base of 45% defense penetration and boasts a very high accuracy total due to his high luck total and his master ability, which does give him accuracy on top of that. So yeah, he is going to be very capable against evasion units just with a decent setup, just like investment into accuracy. Kain is actually extremely effective against the current light meta due to his Dragon Raid Plus and status elements he can apply as well, and he has high accuracy. If Kain touches Jaden at all, any ability, even his weakest ability, Piercing Lance, he will instantly kill Jaden, period. 2, if he is Dragon Raiding either an Elena, if he does Dragon Raid Elena, he will pierce through that Guts and one-shot her completely. There is not much saving Elena from Kain in that situation specifically. If Kain is going against a very like tanky Engelbert, at least he can remove the Guts, so it's still there. However, I will say, if Kain decides to use Dragon's Bane, which is his limit break, and he slows like a bunch of his enemies, he will easily chain, like follow up with that and just kill units very quickly. His limit break was one of the most broken in the game that we all know was super annoying back then. It's gonna be super annoying again once again. So Kain is unfortunately slow at 61 agility with a base of 53, which is very low. Without his wind lance that actually gave like agility for him as a weapon or equipment to boost agility in general, he's gonna struggle to keep up in agility without his self buff of 25% agility. This is on top of the fact that Kain does have cast times on his jumps as well, so that means Kain does need a lot of agility to make sure that you get the most usage out of him as a unit. So yeah, keep that in mind. He does need to be very fast. Anything that reduces cast time will also help him significantly in terms of his utility and what he can do as a unit. So yeah, keep that in mind. Having the Paladin sub-job actually allows him to actually be a tank if he wanted to. I wouldn't suggest it because he's more kind of like a one-trick pony in terms of he has Immortal Spirit and he wants to kind of like burst the units with his Pierce abilities, but he does have Taunting Blade. Most importantly though, on the Paladin sub-job is going to be Guts, which is Immortal Spirit, which you really want to use. So yeah, he does have a good flexibility of units in terms of like good slash and pierce damage types, and he has Guts. I just have to say it's so important. And lastly, his Dragon's Bane limit break has been known, as I said, as one of the best in the game, because if you do happen to get slowed, which he has a very high base chance of happening, and I think it's like 100% against most units that are like 97 faith, because that's just how it works for the calculation. His base chance of landing the slow is 67%, so it's very high. Very few units in the game can not only survive his limit break, especially if they're light element, and on top of it, especially if they're chained right after. So yeah, if you get hit by Dragon's Bane, you get slowed. He's definitely gonna get another turn and then just like finish off anyone who's like surviving right there. Unless you're super hyper mitigating it, he will be very, very strong in that situation. And yeah, as a unit overall for Kain, his stats of scaling are actually very decent with second year changes. He actually has very high attack. His base is a little bit on the lower end, however, because of his passives, it boosts it up, so in the end it kind of evens out once on second year comes out. This also does mean though, because he has good accuracy and high luck, in second year that does mean Kain will still have high accuracy and luck, so that is a very good thing if he is facing against evasion like units in general, so he does have that. The problem why I did not keep him at his rating, and why I might even lower him even further from 4 out of 5 is because any unit that has high dark or pierce resistance, he will do quite well. He will not do quite well. He will have very hard times and struggles against those units because he is missing and lacking those type of imperils and like extra guaranteed damage that other units have. Like Oberon specifically has all elemental resistance down, as well as he does have also pierce resistance down by like a large amount. So he has that going for him. Kain has pierce resistance down, however it's on a very weak attack of his, so it is still effective. However, he will struggle a little bit more to output like a lot more damage at the same time, so he has to kind of set up for that situation if they're getting hyper mitigated against. Keep in mind, Kain also does not have a barrier break, so barriers in general will be very effective against Kain. So yeah, unless there is a master ability 2 boost that can like bring him back up to a 4.5 or maybe even a 5 out of 5 unit, until we see it, we don't know. So for now, I think the cap or like the gatekeep or like the max potential Kain will have in second year changes will be a 4 out of 5. So I think he is still worth your Vizier if you did want a Dragoon in that situation. So here we are at Rosa's evaluation. So as a unit right now, I do give her a solid 4 out of 5. And also because June came out, she is definitely very good right now, especially now than like ever for a while. Rating for her second year changes unfortunately lowers her down to 3 out of 5 because her abilities overall as a unit are kind of power crept, unfortunately, as well as her lacking a lot of specific things she kind of needs from like another extra source, which could potentially be her master ability 2, but like I said, until we see the actual changes for master ability 2, she will be on the lower end of things. So good matchups, she will be very good into June, because not only does she lower ice resistance, she's also more focused on magic attack types as well as missile attack types. June is specifically good against mostly only slash and pierce, so that's 2 things that Rosa does have over her. Additionally, Halloween Leela is going to struggle extremely hard against Rosa users because Rosa is not only very resistant against Halloween Leela, also the elemental change is also there, but Rosa also has 200% hit abilities which can easily just take out Halloween Leela. So yeah, Rosa does have that capability. Another good matchup, which is kind of weird, some people might be like, is why is Jade in here? Is because Rosa actually has a very large amount of spirit, and she can grant her team a very large amount of spirit, as well as if she heals someone with her divine prayer, she can grant shell. She is very, very effective against magic damage users in general. However, units to watch out for, Rain not only has very high magic attack resistance and missile resistance, he also has a lot of spirit, so Rosa will struggle kind of just deal damage in general against specifically Rain. Setia is another unit that is going to be coming out in the future. She's a 100 cost warrior of the Crystal Fire sniper. Not only does she have insanely high like range for her ranged abilities, she will easily take out Rosa in that situation without even being touched. And then lastly, remember the flex unit for elementals. I put specifically Queen here. Queen is from Persona 5, a collaboration which we will probably be getting in the future, but the reason why is Queen has good resistance to both missile and magic attack types, kind of like Rain. Also, because Queen is more focused on strike type attacks, that is something that Rosa will kind of struggle against because she does have a negative resistance to strike specifically. So yeah, based on that matchup, I did put Queen there specifically. So let's talk about Rosa. So Rosa actually got she's gotten good EX changes to help her support abilities specifically, and has a very good kit to actually survive and fight against magic damage in general. She's actually pretty good into the light meta right now, like fighting against it, because of her capability of raising spirit and survivability against magic damage overall. So not only does Rosa have reflex, she also has capability access to 200% hit abilities that can deal good damage, making her effective against evasion units. So yeah, she can hit Elena very consistently if she has to. Rosa can also grant her ability allies healing power, Spirit of 25, this is AoE by the way, as well as having instant heals for specifically her Limit Break and her Divine Prayer. As I said, Divine Prayer on a single ally does grant shell as well, so if you have a tank that is kind of tanking light elements, Rosa is going to be very good into keeping that tank alive because of her capabilities. So while Rosa is at 65 agility, which is pretty good, her base agility is only 52 unfortunately, which is not good. However, she does have a passive to boost that agility to 71 agility total to keep her fast and relevant even in year 2 changes. So yeah, she still has that type of backup. Unfortunately for Rosa, however, her holy and full life cast times are have nothing to reduce the cast time of it, because almost all her magic subjob cast times on her white mage and black mage subjob all have cast times. She has nothing, literally nothing to reduce her cast time as a unit, so she definitely needs something as like a TMR, a vision card, something to reduce those cast times, or else she's going for the full cast time on all of them. Rosa actually lacks AoE heals without using her Limit Break or Curaga specifically from her white mage subjob, which for her Limit Break has to be right next to allies, or 2, if she wants to use Curaga, it has to have the full cast time, unfortunately, so you might not even get the heal out in time. So yeah, keep that in mind, she does kind of struggle if she has to cast. While having both a decent attack and magic stats overall as a unit, Rosa is set up kind of more to be like a utility DPS and or healer support as well for her teammates, because her scaling for attack and magic are actually very low. The totals are decent, but her bases are very low, so scaling into second year is going to be very hard for her, as well as she has no offensive imperils outside of her ice, which she can only imperil ice, but if anyone is using missile or magic attack resistance, Rosa's going to deal very, very little damage in that situation. So even as a utility DPS, she will struggle to deal that utility DPS. She doesn't even have like any defense or spirit penetration. She doesn't have any of like attack type penetration. She's going to struggle in that situation. And yeah, overall, her scaling of her stats are actually not good, unfortunately, and with second year changes and her main limitations coming from her abilities itself, that what she is capable of, I can't really see her going past it out of like a 3 out of 5. I think she's still a decently solid support. However, it's gonna struggle to keep her up like relevant until her master ability 2 changes, which might be coming out, we don't know when, but yeah. If she wants to be more relevant, her master ability 2 is really kind of has to be her saving grace. Like it's gotta like lower hate on her, give her like insta casts, or like give her like a really fast cast, like cast time reduction if she can, if possible. Like there's a lot of things that can fix her up as a unit. So yeah, overall in the future she is going to be a 3 out of 5. Right now though, she's going to be very strong against the current light / any wind matchups. And here we are at Cecil's evaluation. His rating up to date, if you were to use him right now, I really don't think he's going to be good. He is going to be at a 2 out of 5. Ironically, however, compared to Rosa at least, his ratings for second year changes and scaling is going to change to a 3.5 out of 5 is what I believe. So yeah, Cecil, he's more currently kind of used as more as like a TMR unit. His TMR helps like bravery farm very easily, as well as, I mean, if you go for mastery, for light mastery, you will have to kind of like, you know, pull Cecil and make sure you're using him. But yeah, you get the point what I'm talking about. Right now, he is more just like a trophy unit, honestly. In the future, he does have a little bit of potential, but he's not going to be anything like game breaking or changing enough in the meta. So good matchups. He's very good into Kain. Not only does he can bestow his teammates on physical barriers, but he is also very pierce and defense tanky against Kain specifically. So Kain will have trouble kind of taking out Cecil quickly. Same thing with Rune Stern. Cecil does have very good slash attack resistance, as well as having, once again, physical barriers. Stern can only break barriers one at a time, so if there are multiple physical barriers, which is something Cecil can provide to his team, that is something that Rune Stern will kind of have to like be wary of. Also, because Cecil once again is very physical tanky, as well as high defense and physical barriers, as well as resistance against slash, he is going to be good into that matchup. And yes, I think this unit, 100 cost, the new water unit in JP that is like, oh my gosh, this guy's like meta changing. I do think Cecil is good into him. Obviously, it's a niche matchup. You're not really going to see Cecil into Astoria. I believe that's his name. But yeah, Astoria is very strong. However, because he is locked mostly to slash type damage, he will have to like burn through Cecil's barriers, has to burn through his slash resistance, and has to burn through a very high amount of defense. So yeah, that is something to watch out for. And now, units to watch out for specifically for Cecil. Cecil has absolutely very poor magic attack type, resistance, as well as like magic survivability outside of his single magic barrier that he can't really give to himself. I believe he has to give it to an ally. Additionally, he does not have any like base spirit to like a good amount, so yeah, he has to worry about that. He does, however, have spirit debuff resistance on a buff of 100%, which is why I did not put Golbez here, but I put Helena here instead, because Helena could just limit break instead, because, you know, Dark Imperil will be very effective against that. Another unit to watch out for, once again from Persona 5, is going to be Joker. Specifically Joker here, because not only does Joker have different attack types that he can use, he is not locked to slash. So Joker can use like missile damage as well, and Joker can also break barriers very quickly and has high defense penetration and can lower defense as well. So Joker really has like an entire kit that Cecil has a lot of trouble to kind of like handle in that situation. So yeah, Joker does have that type of flexibility. So yeah, as a unit, that's a pretty good matchup that you have to watch out for specifically for Cecil. And lastly but not least is going to be the Lightning 100 cost unit. He is very strong in magic attack types and damage overall. His spirit penetration is not too high, so just in general, if you do not have magic attack resistance like to a decent degree for resistance, then the 100 cost lightning unit will definitely delete Cecil very quickly, like maybe even faster than Helena. I wouldn't guarantee it, but yeah, that is something to watch out for. This is also not including specifically Ibarra, who can also kind of like do the same specifically to Cecil, so he has to watch out for magic attack type users overall. So let's talk about him. Cecil was always known for his barriers, and it at a very heavy cost to his HP back then, but with his EX changes, it's the exact same thing, nothing really changed. However, he does lose only a little bit of HP now, compared to literally like 25% of his HP, so yeah, that is much better now at least. With just one passive, he reaches an astonishing 38 defense, one of the highest in the games without any turn durations. While Golbez can reach a higher defense total than Cecil, it is going to be only for 3 turns. Cecil as a base unit with just one passive is at 38 defense. This is before any vision cards, this is before any espers, this is before any items. Just keep that in mind, it is very high. Cecil was always known to hit super hard due to his soldier passive because of self-sacrifice, but he was lacking really 3 important parts of the DPS, with his EX only fixing one issue, which was defense penetration. The other 2 is going to be specifically 100% hit abilities, as well as slash resistance penetration, which 2 things that he does not have. Cecil is very slow, unfortunately, at 59 agility with a base of 55, which is, I mean, it's not horrible, but his total agility is definitely bad. He's often very slow, making his setup rely on players to properly agility tune their units. Like, if you wanted to use Cecil for his barriers, you have to properly make sure your units are set up before he uses the ability, or else he's going to be just running around putting a single barrier onto a single unit, like in 2 turn orders, and if he does that, he's not using anything for himself, and that is losing 20% of his HP by doing so. So yeah, you really have to properly set up Cecil in that situation, so he is not necessarily an easy unit to use. With the high total luck actually, but only a decent base luck, Cecil actually has decent agility, not agility, accuracy. However, excuse me, but it's still a solid 15 accuracy behind Kain before the difference from a luck vision card bonus. Once you put in a luck vision card bonus, obviously Cecil is way behind Kain. It's gonna be like 20 or higher like accuracy difference, but yeah, that does not mean Cecil is very bad in accuracy. He has a decent scaling to it at least. He does need help in that department though if you need to hit like a very evaded units in the future. Ironically, while Cecil is a Lunar Paladin, he has no utility to actually be a tank and is treated more as a true bruiser slash utility unit because he has no hate anywhere in his kit. He does not have Taunting Blade, which strangely Kain does, but yeah, Cecil does not. So yeah, he's really just used for his barriers and then just DPS out. Just that's basically what he does. While Cecil can bestow barriers to his allies to save them, ironically he cannot provide them to himself to survive. Yes, his physical AoE barrier that he can bestow on his allies does not apply to him, strangely. So it is kind of funny how it works. I do think that is a limitation as a unit overall, but yeah, that is ironic. And lastly, as Cecil is, overall his scaling of stats are actually really high. His HP is really high, his attack is one of the highest as well, and he has a decent luck stat. So going into second year, the second year changes with like VCs, sub VCs, all that, Cecil actually scales pretty well with sub vision cards. And the main issue is that his abilities overall are going to be preventing from toppling over what he can do now and in the future. Perhaps with like a defensive or very offensive Master Ability 2 setup, he could become more relevant, but until then, he's gonna be probably capped at 3.5 out of 5 as a unit overall in the future. The reason why sub-vision card setups and vision cards in the future are gonna be very good for scaling for Cecil is that there is gonna be a vision card that provides very high slash resistance penetration. It also has magic attack resistance. So yeah, Cecil does scale off well off those. His attack is always going to be relevant, and he does basically gain more options for damage because of that vision card setups in the future. But as of right now on release, I do see him as a 2 out of 5. He's just a TMR unit that you just want to get his TMR for easy bravery farming. But in the future, he can maybe become a decent unit. We'll have to see, especially from his Master Ability 2 changes in the future. And yeah, we've come to the end of the video. I apologize for a very long delay of videos, but also this video I tried to make very short, but I ended up just talking a little bit too much. But yeah, I will be trying to get more videos out today and or tomorrow throughout the week. During the Final Fantasy 4 collaboration, I still need to do like Joom, I still need to do like Lucia, I need to do all those. But yeah, until then, until next video, take care guys and peace out.